Meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion that the minutes of the January 11th, 2024 regular meeting be approved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there any public comment on items that are not on this agenda? Okay. Not having any old business, we're going to move right into new business. The Zahalsky Plaza site plan, consideration of an application for site plan approval from Aaron Nemus Holdings, LLC, for the Zahalsky Plaza multi-tenant commercial structure located at 801-821 Bebout Road in the Mixed-Use Activity Center District.
Okay, the Township has received a final land development submittal from Andrew Zahalsky for Zahalsky Plaza, located at 801-821 Bebout Road, which is just north of the Bebout Valley Brook roundabout. The property in question is 6.7 acres in size and consists of 5 parcels. It's currently vacant and located in the Mixed-Use Activity Center District. It's completely surrounded by low-density zoning district with the Orchard Highlands development located to its north and west. Brush Run runs along the western edge of the property, and its floodplain takes up a significant area of the overall property. The applicant proposes a 25,900 square foot multi-tenant office retail structure to be primarily located on the southern portion of the property. 112 parking spaces are proposed as part of the development, of which 63 will be located under the structure and the remaining to the north. And you can see it on the screen there, the bigger gray blob, this isn't working, is kind of where the structure is going to be located, and the parking structure is going to be located up to the north and underneath the structure. The submitted plan contains significant deficiencies, including but not limited to an uncertainty regarding the placement of stairwells, elevators, and structural supports, vehicle maneuverability concerns, stormwater management concerns, and the lack of a plan to consolidate the 5 existing parcels. As such, staff is recommending consideration of the plan be tabled and continued at the March meeting to allow time for the applicant to respond to comments from staff and the professional consultants.
Okay. Jim, can you please explain if this planning commission would deny or table, are we the final vote on this?
Yes.
Okay.
The consolidation plan, which we have not received, would get approved, would get recommended by you and go to the council, but the actual development itself, you were the final say on that.
Very good. Do we want to have the applicant come up and talk, please?
Sure. Hi, Kim Gales of J.R. Gales and Associates. Maybe prior to this has been going on for a couple years, as you know. We've been developing this plan. Maybe before Mr. Sutter started his position here, there was a previous consolidation plan that was submitted to staff.
Oh, but it hasn't been approved.
Well, we can resubmit it to Mr. Sutter. No, we are requesting.
You submitted a consolidation plan, but the parcels are not consolidated. Is that correct?
That's correct. Until we get the approval of everything in the land development, then we would consolidate at one time.
I'm not sure that's the appropriate steps, but
well, I think if we consolidate prior to any...
You should consolidate prior to it.
Yes, correct.
Yes. So you're actually one step. You should have consolidated before you came here.
The parcels.
The parcels.
That's not usually how...
It's the way this township works.
Okay, so then we can certainly do that. That's not a problem. And also, Worcester did do a parking demand study that was included, and the medical requires 55 spaces, and we have 60. So I don't believe we're deficient in any parking for the medical. So we can go through that with Mr. Sutter. The plan now, right now, as you see it on the screen, that is the existing roundabout that you've built. We have changed the plans since we got to review and done all the field work, and that's what exists out there today.
Okay. So
we will be resubmitting. We're here just tonight, not for a vote, just to go over it with Planning Commission. We'll be back next month. It's a larger project, larger development. We just wanted to come and in front of the commission to see if you have any thoughts, any other questions.
Well, I guess I'm a little concerned because that's not what we talked about here. She's making some kind of preliminary and not asking for a vote by this commission?
That's what I've been told, that we were going to be tabled, and we came and
Staff made a
presented.
recommendation that be tabled. We
Yes.
weren't, that we can make a recommendation to the planning commission, but they're the ones that have the decision making authority.
Yeah, we're asking to be tabled. We were just coming and making presentation tonight.
Okay, this commission did not know that.
And this commission typically doesn't just accept, applicants coming in explaining what they're going to do. It's a recommending or voting body. They
I
have the ability to table should they want additional evidence or the need, or if the applicant requests and they feel it's necessary. But there's no sort of advanced show before them in this particular situation.
This is Mr.
Please
Zahalsky.
come up and introduce yourself.
Yes, my name's Andrew Zahalsky. I'm the property owner. Just for the sake of clarity, there was an email chain where we were informed that the recommendation was to table. We had
That's a recommend, so you,
we had
are
been
you
informed,
requesting a table?
No, I'm saying we had been informed that the planning officer was going to say, as they said, that they're recommending to table.
We vote on it though.
Okay.
We could deny.
Okay,
understand.
right, understood. We had then inquired whether we should then just not submit for today and address the concerns so as not to waste your time, and it was suggested to us that we should still come and present. So again, it's not that we came here just to talk about it and waste your time. We were actually instructed that we should still
Okay, so
talk and
I'm
then
gonna ask
request
you
the
guys to
table
do
at the
this
end.
then. Are you formally making a presentation, just a preliminary presentation, and you want to come back in March meeting
Yes.
to ask us to approve this?
Correct.
So this is just a presentation?
Just a presentation.
Okay, so we will not vote on tabling this?
I think you have to table it.
Well, they're saying now, I almost
This is an
think they should
official
have,
submission.
they did, they're saying now they don't want to ask us to vote. John, thoughts?
Yeah,
A yes or no?
Well, I think the confusion lies, understand that the staff is separate from the planning commission. They can make recommendations, planning that has they don't have to follow if they don't want to. The recommendation to them was maybe that this should be tabled, but I think with the understanding and not knowing all the particulars, that the plan itself doesn't meet or have the requisite information for the board to make a recommendation for approval. That being said, I don't know what's missing in here and what you're looking for. If you're looking to say tonight to the planning commission, hey, look at where we are and tell us what we need to do and we'll come back, fix it, and vote. It's unusual that we in advance get 2 bites at that. We would hope you would come ready and everything would be lined up so the board could take action.
Okay.
And
It's-
John, let me ask you another question, because this is fundamental to where they are. Is it inappropriate for them to be bringing a plan for us to vote yes or no on if they don't have the consolidated plan?
Typically, we have that in advance.
Okay.
So what that would be, you'd have to come for consolidation recommendation, then go to council, get it approved, then come back here for site plan
You
approval.
want to speak, Mr. Lauer?
Well, Paul Lauer, Township Manager. My only point would be, I would agree with you, there should be a consolidation plan before you consider the site plan. But if you're going to do that, I would implore the Planning Commission to insist upon getting a written time extension so that in fact, we can stay within our requirements in terms of considering this. The alternative would be, and Mark's going to know this better than I know it, without that consolidation plan, I'm not sure that the plan is complete and ready for consideration.
I think we could actually administratively deny the plan, and could have, if we recognize that that was missing from the set at the time it was submitted. But we were operating under the idea that this is a complete submission, we reviewed it as such, and that's why we were looking for a vote today. And given the number of comments, tabling would have been an acceptable vote so that they have time to get their,
But how about a consolidation plan?
well, they need to provide that, and this
And that needs
is why we need
approved,
the
too.
time extension. That
Well, right, they're not going to get that plan by the March meeting.
No.
No. And so, given that the plan is here in front of the planning commission, it would seem to me that you'd end up doing one of two things. You would either take action to turn the plan down, or alternatively, you would get a time extension of sufficient length to allow them the opportunity to have the consolidation plan in front of the planning commission as well as council before they come back. And that's not going to be a short period of time. So, the extension would have to be of a significant time. But the fact that it's here, I think you need the time extension, or you have to deny the plan. It's one or the other.
Yeah.
And I would think if it was a time extension, it would have to be
9 months.
90 days?
Well, I think it'd even be more. I
9
probably
months.
would want it somewhat open-ended in terms of marrying it to a period of time after council approves consolidation.
Correct.
Because
Yeah, and of course, we would need that in writing, so.
Yes.
Okay.
And we can provide you that.
Would you be
But we
okay
would
with
need it
that?
Oh,
tonight.
I think, yeah, we'd be
Would you,
fine.
let me ask you this question.
You want me to get it for me?
Yes.
Would you rather a denial of your plan right now?
No,
Or would you rather an extended?
we'll do open-ended, whatever.
Yeah, I think you have to, because, the third problem would be you just withdraw your plan altogether and start over, but I know you don't want to go that route.
So I know Peters, but in other municipalities, we do run the consolidation plan with the land development and record that first prior.
That doesn't happen in Peters Township.
Okay, okay.
You have to consolidate the plan so that that when the site plan's considered, you're looking at the.
I can submit
We
it
can't give
tomorrow.
an extension in so much as you have to request it.
Oh, I understand. I understand. Totally understand. I
Do
mean,
you want to make the request now? Is that appropriate?
Yeah, I think
and I can formally put it in writing.
Yeah, I think for our record, we'd like you to request the extension,
Yeah.
that the board not take action on this, and that you extend the time period, and that,
How long are we,
I would like the extension to be, and again, it's you're giving us the extension. Should you give us 60 days and there's no consolidation, it's coming back before planning to deny the application. So to me, it's safer to give an extension until such time as maybe, what do you think, Paul, 60 days after council approves consolidation to get you back before planning?
Yes.
Because then I can't control how quickly, that's my concern, you can get the council and do the consolidation. So I don't want to put a number on it.
It's done. We can submit tomorrow.
Okay.
The consolidation plan, it has been done.
So we're going to
And-
go,
But that wouldn't be on our agenda for council until,
after you're going to come back to
Gotta
us.
come back to
again.
them.
yeah.
Yeah, so I would agree with John, 60 days after the
Council.
approval of the consolidation plan.
By council.
Yeah, by council.
So is that,
Okay,
can
that's
you
no
write
problem.
that, can you write
You know what, we can-
that language into our form?
And I was going to say, what you can do is if you want to accept that, we can go back and we can sign this in the room.
Yeah,
and
that's
you can- they can move
absolutely
on.
no problem. If, you know,
It only makes sense, because otherwise they're not in a position to fully evaluate and can't recommend this.
Correct.
yes, because I think there was, and maybe just the time of everything and the lapse of time since we've been here, the consolidation plan was previously submitted. It was not acted on, but it was submitted to staff, so.
Okay, maybe that's the confusion as to why it came this far along, but
Yeah.
neither here nor there. This board not involved in that side of it,
Okay.
and their hands are somewhat tied.
John, so do we want to ask her to make the formal,
verbally?
verbally?
Yeah, I think both. I think because then the board can vote to accept the extension
Extension.
request.
So we're going to
ahead.
request the extension of time till at least 60 days after the consolidation plan is recorded
By Township Council.
by Township Council.
That's the request, and the board wants to make a motion to accept that
Thoughts?
or talk about it. It's up to you.
I still need to fill some stuff in.
What kind of timeline does that really truly look like? We're keeping this open quite long.
Well, it would be, if they work diligently, they'd probably come back here in the March 14th meeting for recommendation on consolidation.
If we really do receive it tomorrow, yeah, it would probably maybe go back and forth, make sure it looks good, but I would anticipate that would be on the agenda for the March meeting.
March 14th meeting, a month away.
And then that would go back.
Then we
to
would
council.
recommend, assuming everything's okay, recommend to council. In the audience, so you know, that has nothing to do with the plan. All that's doing is putting all these parcels as one parcel, so the audience knows.
Have we received any response to the gateway comments yet? I mean, there's some substantial engineering concerns in here. Have we received response to date? I don't need to go through them.
We just issued it on January 26th, and we haven't received a response to that letter yet.
But we are also ready to resubmit from Gateways and from Mike Mudry's, from traffic, your traffic consultant. We're ready to resubmit next Monday.
Yeah, and that's something, obviously, for tonight's meeting, if there's word to go forward, we would have liked to have had that in advance.
Yeah,
Okay.
and just so you...
We weren't requesting it.
Okay, I know you're not requesting anything, but I suggest, based off the numerous comments that are here that are very impactful to that particular parcel, as well as our Peters Township community, that you better have every one of those comments addressed to make this board feel very comfortable, including of all of our experts. So don't come back here and act like somebody's going to talk to them after the meeting. We need it all voted on and everything done and complete.
No
So
problem.
I suggest, yeah.
So the motion's been made, you can still discuss it. Or the request has been made, no motion up here has been made to accept.
I don't see any problem with that.
Okay.
They're going to submit anyways.
Do you want to go ahead and...
I'll make a motion that we accept the request to resubmit the consolidation plan at our March meeting.
Well, no, I'm not sure we'll even do that, Jim. We're not gonna, she's gonna grant a 60-day extension.
From after council approves consolidation, if council should approve.
So if we go March 14th for planning, what would be the following council meeting?
Be the end of March, fourth Monday of the month.
Okay.
You'll be back here by May.
That would be March 25th.
Would it just simplify things to call it a 180-day extension? That way, it'll give us time to go back and forth, and we'll have well over the 60 days after, as opposed to pegging it on something else which may or may not.
Yeah, I think yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. If you have other concerns you need to address,
Yeah.
just,
You only brought one form.
Mr. Holdren can rewrite that. And then,
180 days worth.
so, man, 180 days from today or from?
From today.
180 days from today.
So why don't you, if you could verbally, since we record these, change your request for the extension.
Okay. We're going to request a 180-day extension from this evening
From the board to take action on
for the
this.
board to take action on.
You got that now?
I'll
Make a motion?
make a motion that we accept the 180-day extension to reconsider this consolidation plan.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Do you want to just talk about the plan a little more, just so people can see, to give you a chance?
Yeah, so the building is really going to be Mr. Zahalsky's a medical office. It's roughly around 19,800 square feet. We're going to have a small bakery and little retail shop also for, this is more,
Single story?
you want to say that? Well,
It's a
garage.
single-story, there's the attic space with
Okay.
to be, within the height limits, so there's not going to be like used.
More storage than occupancy.
Okay.
Yes. This is from Mr. Zahalsky's own business.
Okay.
So we do have the traffic impact fee that we'd be paying over about $201,000. We do meet the parking requirements. Booster did a study, 55 spots were required just for his medical, for the medical. And we have about 60 for him, and there's a total of about 101 spaces provided, but we only really are required to have 85.
Okay.
So we have more than ample parking. Staff did, I believe, receive Wooster's study on that. We had updated the roundabout from the existing conditions. Actually, you can see the amount of, what amazed me, the amount of riprap they put on the side of our bank. We've touched up the grading in some areas that had some low spots from the staff. And so then, the entrance did receive PennDOT approval from Worcester. So there'll be parking on this side And then parking, you can go inside the garage or back in through here and leave through the garage. All of our handicap will be in the bottom of the building, and the building will have an elevator.
What's the distance from the roundabout to the entry point?
So I can get you that. So you're saying from here?
Well, when you enter the roundabout coming on Bebout Road going towards Valley Brook, what's the distance between the entrance to this property to the entrance to the cul-de-sac, roundabout?
Distance-wise, like from here to here?
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is,
To the driveway, not to the edge of the building.
Oh, to the driveway?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
To round up the driveway.
I've been out to the roundabout a few times, but I don't use it often. I'm not sure how much backup there is, and I'm not sure if that would create and affect the roundabout from a traffic standpoint.
Let me get you that number to be exact, and I would think
And
that would have came up.
Does that have any bearing on your traffic study, or?
I mean, it does. There's a couple things. First of all, they did do a traffic impact study. It was reviewed by PennDOT. There is no, you're looking like a queuing issue that would occur.
Yeah.
We didn't find any queuing issues. I will say, though, that they just resubmitted HOP plans to PennDOT, so they don't have approval from PennDOT. PennDOT hasn't said no to the location. I think they're fine with that. There's still some details, Kim, on the plan that we have to approve, because, and another thing that I've pointed out to Wooster is, the design of their driveway and the HOP is not matching your plans. So we need to work, there needs to be some consistency worked out. And then just one final note on the Wooster thing. They did do a parking study, but I had some comments on it. So there's still some question, Kim, about the parking number, just to kind of roll up.
My concern is if the entry point to this development will create a queuing problem, it could easily be moved.
Right. And we did look at that, and that's been a consideration, but the point that they're at, I think, is there's some grading issues and some sight distance issues if you push it further into that curve. So we balanced it on sight distance, and then we checked the queuing that Wooster prepared, and the queuing was not a concern with that. These roundabouts, the queues aren't they have hardly any queue. It's not like a traffic light. So PennDOT and TPD for the township have looked at that. And that wasn't a concern. Okay. But I think there are some other concerns still with in our review letter, though.
And Mike, what year was the queuing analysis identified for? Was that how far in the future?
They look out 5 years from today, basically. So there's a 5-year projection from today. And honestly, we're still seeing flat traffic. We're not seeing, like back in the day, 10 years ago, we were seeing 2-3% traffic growth a year. Post-COVID, we're seeing reduced volumes that are staying flat, basically. So it was probably a conservative analysis looking out 5 years. But I understand your concern about the queuing. That is something, that was one of our big concerns looking at that. We usually check the queuing and turn lanes at these driveways. So, and they met the requirements for that.
And we will have a rain garden and some different infiltration beds as our stormwater management. The sanitary sewer is about as simple as you can get. We're coming out of the building right into the manhole, and we've been in touch with the authority on that also.
And when the cul-de-sac, or the roundabout was installed, I know there was work to relocate, I don't know if it was sewer lines or electric, didn't they?
They moved some power lines in
Power
there.
lines.
Yeah.
Is there any impact to that? Like, will they have to redo?
I mean, and that was a comment that I had back to you, Kim, on our review letter was, I didn't know if you were just using the original PennDOT plans, or have you circled back and done like an as-built or checked with them? So, I mean, as long as you've spotted the post, construction utilities and things, I would assume that Kim's aware of where that is and there'd be no impacts to what they did.
So the current status of where everything is what they're basing their development.
And that was one of my questions, and I'm assuming when you do your response, you're going to say, hey, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Anything else?
So what did you say, a bakery and a?
Retail.
Okay.
Have we checked the floodplain elevation, the base floodplain elevation, the regulatory floodplain elevation, first floor, ground floor, we're all satisfied with that?
We did check that, yes.
Thank you.
Clearly, there's some streams there. How far does the 100-year floodplain go up to it? I can't tell.
The exact elevation, I'm not sure, but they're outside of the floodplain. That was, in the beginning, I think you guys were initially proposing taking it, but they pushed it back since, so they're okay with that.
It's further, it's back,
This is the floodplain.
you know, it's, it's back in here. This is just grass, so it's back in here. The 2 dotted lines.
What about, would you guys at Gateway consider the 500-year floodplain at all? Because the 100-year floodplain, as you know, in Western Pennsylvania is almost, we're getting flooding so much more often in 100 years.
We would consider whatever FEMA would have mapped, and that's what they had on their mapping, so.
Okay.
Is it a zone AE? We have a FEMA-defined floodway?
The floodway should be defined on there as well, and they're outside of that as well.
Okay.
Okay.
There's no work proposed other than a utility line extension within the floodplain.
Yes.
I saw stormwater management, we have yet to have infiltration tests. Have those been completed to date?
Yes, this week, so we will get that over to Gateway
Gotcha.
after we receive the letter.
I noted that Gateway said that there's a possibly a joint permit here. We established that there is or is not.
I've submitted the plans to DEP and have not heard back since I got
Do you have
Gateway's
impacts to
response.
streams and wetlands?
There's no impacts to any streams or wetlands. So my feeling is we don't need anything from DEP, except for a GP.
Thank you.
Anything else for the applicant? Thank you.
Okay.
Audience, I just want to make you aware, we are not voting tonight. This plan, this was just some preliminary analysis by the applicant. It will be posted again when they come for a consolidation plan, which will have nothing to do with the building or whatnot. It will all just be about whether legally they can consolidate these parcels or not. They'll come in front of this board probably no earlier than our first meeting in March, which would be the 14th. The applicant has agreed to have this plan brought, given the township the ability to push it off 180 days from today's date. So there will be no action taken on this plan tonight. You're more than welcome to come up and talk about it, but this may not be the best venue for it tonight. The applicant has quite a bit of work to do on all their engineering. And as I just told the applicant, they need to come in front of this board with all their plans completely signed off from all of our engineers before we'll consider it. But if there's any audience comments you want to talk, please come up, introduce yourself.
Come up.
Tell us where you live.
My name is Peter Steele. I live at 240 Ridgeview. My property's at the top of the hill, so I'm far away from this, but I go past this every day. My concern is 2 things. I see no setback from the roadway. So that's question 1. Question 2 is, what is the construction material? Is this a masonry building? Is this going to be a steel barn? A wood structure? Can they tell us a little bit about
Sure.
what this is
Come on up.
going to?
Are you that far along in the plans? Please come up.
We had on a, I don't know if you have it on file, but we had on a prior submission shown, we had some preliminary architectural drawings that
Right
showed
here.
An elevation, yeah. So the plan is to have, a brick exterior that, matches the character of the community. In terms of setback, that mixed activity district requires I think it's a 25-foot setback from the road to make way for sidewalks and the like. Originally, and we had this discussion before. Originally, that property was zoned residential, which required a 50-foot setback. But based on where the cliff is and where the stream is, it was impossible the reason why there's nothing there to date is it's impossible to build a home 50-foot set off from the road. But back in 2015, as part of the comprehensive plan that was passed at that time, they specifically redesigned this as a mixed activity use to allow it to have some light commercial use and reduce that setback to 25 feet, which enabled us to basically, again, we're building along the road, trying to stay far away from the stream and the wetlands as we can.
And the type of material, is that brick?
Yeah, so it plans to be like a brick
So it'll
exterior.
coincide with the town center type
Right.
build construction.
Any other comments?
My name's Bob Marsick. I live at 105 Ridgeview. I live directly behind that. Couple issues I have, the lighting. I already have enough lighting coming from the park on top of the hill, which it is what it is. They do shut off at night. My other concern is the water runoff from everything. Is there going to be enough retention now that we're not having any ground that's going to be able to soak up any rainwater? It's not going to be on pavement. Is there going to be retention underground, or are we just going to use oversized piping?
They're a combination of a rain garden, oversized paving, and some infiltration.
Yes. Because the creek is already starting to erode everybody's yards in the back. Like you said, with all the floods we're having anymore, it's just this
Yeah, I
last
mean, the
one.
100-yard floodplain's almost a joke.
Yeah, that's out the window.
Happens every
anymore.
10 years, it
Yeah.
feels like.
My other issue is the noise, deliveries, trash. Are they going to be during the day, or are they going to be 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock?
Those are going to be all details they're going to have to
Yeah.
bring before this board.
Okay, that's going to have to be brought up later. Okay, we talked about traffic impact. I disagree with the circle. I live right there. I see the traffic. It's backed up.
It's already backing up.
It's backing up, okay? I'm sure there's other folks here that can contest it, agree to that.
On Bebout or?
Oh, yeah. It's people coming from Bebot, going through the circle on the Bebot, there's no slowing down. There's no circle. It's just a little bit of a dip right there for them. They do not lose any speed coming through that circle. That's gonna be a
Let me
problem
ask
for
you a
your folks coming in
question.
and out.
Besides using, do we do any realistic testing other than these charts? Is there any monitoring out there that Worcester could do or you
For the
could
traffic,
do?
you mean?
Yeah, to determine, because maybe.
I mean, honestly,
Maybe the growth of this township is so extraordinary, and this roundabout gets more use than your typical roundabout.
I mean, honestly, their traffic counts were from before the roundabout. I mean, I don't know if there was consideration of a post, because it's only been open for a few months.
Maybe it's something we should look at.
Right.
A traffic calming.
Yeah, it gets bad.
We could bring that up. Plus, there's other construction projects going on. I mean, I know when the utility work up the street was going on,
Correct, yeah.
everything was out of whack. So it's been yeah.
Well, this is the 6:30,
And I
7
think
o'clock.
cars are also moving through there a lot faster.
Yeah, they are. They're coming down, especially Bebout. When they continue on Bebout, they do not slow for that circle.
Nope.
They just go straight through. That gives it a lot of problem for people coming around the circle from Valley Brook, because a lot of times those people don't stop. So they're not yielding for people in that circle.
Yeah.
I'm just worried about what it's going to do to the property
And I'll
value.
tell all the residents on this, these concerns you have, there's going to be a sufficient time now. Email staff concerns of the residents in the area or residents in Peters about these issues. And hopefully, they and our consultants and the applicant will try to address in advance of these meetings.
All right. Is it possible for me to get a copy of those comments from the township here?
Is that on the website or not?
I'm not sure if it's on the website, but we can certainly.
Yeah,
just email it. What I recommend for anyone, just email myself or Jim, and we can provide you with the information that we can hand out.
And then you can see all the outstanding issues.
Yeah, I wanted to check on those. The screening, I know last time we were here, we talked about screening on the back of the building It's going to be kind of hard to do that, being I'm going to be looking at a 3-story building, not just the one. I'll be looking at the parking, first floor, and the roof. You having any kind of screening for your mechanical equipment, or is that inside? You do split systems, or is it going to be the parking garage?
Again, we don't have all the internals of the architectural drawing have not been completed,
So those are things we can request upon too in the process.
The only reason why I'm going to be looking at this.
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely.
You know, I mean, I moved here because it was quiet, wooded, you know. It's not going to be that anymore.
Sure.
So, that's all I have.
Thank you.
So, but I will get a copy of that off of you.
Thank you.
Hi, Carol O'Toole, 206 Ridgeview Drive.
And I'm John Jones, same address.
Great.
Concerns about the roundabout, you said a 5-year plan. That's ridiculous. Have you accounted for the new plans that are going in on that side of the township?
There's a lot of houses being built.
The horse farm, from what I understand, has been sold off. That'll be homes. The one across the street, right up from it, Froebe, you're going to discuss that tonight. That's a lot of homes and a lot of cars. When you say it's flat, go stand there at 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. And getting out of my place, out of Orchard Highlands, you can't. Because of the timing of the roundabout, you can't get out of there. And now we're going to have more traffic from a medical office building. This is a residential area. There is plenty of other areas in the township that you can go and not be in our backyards. You're creating light pollution. You're non-environmentally friendly. There is wetlands there that you will ruin. And this gentleman wanted to know about a buffer. There's not going to be room for you to put a buffer there. All we're going to do is look at this god-awful building that you're taking our land away from us. It's a residential, the wetland, the flood, it floods. Go down there after a heavy rain. Let me tell you, your building will be falling in. And I'd say, good, let it go.
Hi, my name is Stephen Simcoe. I live at 119 Meadowbrook Circle, which is also directly behind the proposed building. I agree 100% with everything that you just brought to the table. And you guys have all been around here long enough that most of you remember Hurricane Ivan. It wasn't that long ago, was more recent than 500-year floodplain. And that entire valley was inundated. That it was water halfway up the hill of my backyard. So I think that half the water would be into the building at that point. So I think that's something to consider because it doesn't seem like that was. And the other thing that I wanted to make note of is we're talking about a medical office facility, we're talking about a bakery, we're talking about retail. But with the way that this is zoned, my understanding is if Mr. Zahalsky gets bored with this plan, with this building, and he sells it, they could put apartments there, they can put restaurants there, they can do a lot of other things that are still within the coding rights that I don't think people fully understand that this building might not be exactly what he's proposing it to be. So I just wanted to bring that to the table, and obviously the light pollution and sound pollution, and they're not going to be able to plant trees that are going to be big enough to block it from my house. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody on this one? Okay, hearing no more, please, this board is taking no action on this. They will most likely not be in front of this board for multiple months, but please keep in contact with the township staff to determine when they'll come in front of this board for the consolidation, then council, then eventually, if they get everything together, in front of this board for site plan approval.
Jeff, can I mention real quick?
Go ahead.
It is likely, it sounds like the consolidation plan will be in front of council, in front of this board and planning commission next month. As Mr. Mills said, that is simply just consolidating the 5 parcels into one parcel. That's all that is. But it is likely going to be in front of the board, the commission next month. And we as staff will send letters out to everyone in Orchard Highlands and within 600 feet, again, in advance the next time this would be considered a planning commission.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Did you say 500 feet?
600 feet, plus the entire Orchard Highlands development.
Thank you.
Right. How are we dealing with this other meeting now? Did you want to?
We're after 7:30, so we can roll
Okay.
right into it.
Yeah, okay, great. So, next on the agenda is Planning Commission recommendation for the Froebe Farms Residential Development Preliminary Plan.
All right, just first, I'm going to start with some background on this because there are a lot of moving parts associated with this matter. You can make sure, by the way. A previous version of this plan was denied by the council in December. The plan before you tonight was submitted after this denial and was determined to be administratively complete, which is why it's before you tonight. Despite the pending ordinance to remove the CR overlay from this property, this submittal was received prior to it gaining pending ordinance status, so the applicant is entitled to develop this plan under the provisions of the CR overlay. To be clear, what is before you tonight is completely separate matter from the previous plan, a forthcoming plan, and the pending ordinance that I just mentioned. All that being said, the property in question is an 87.3 acre property on Froebe Road situated among Peterswood Park, 1781 Club, and the Oak Ridge development. Two large white oak trees, which have been recommended for protection by the Environmental Quality Board, are located on the property. Additionally, an abandoned gas well is located on the eastern side of the property. The applicant proposes a 4-phase development comprising 170 single-family detached homes. Sanitary sewer service from phases 2 through 4 is proposed to be conveyed to a pump station located within phase 1, and flows from phase 1 and the pump station will exit the property via an existing easement to the south. Peters Creek Sanitary Authority at this time has not indicated their approval of this method, which the township would require to receive prior to considering a final plan. The submitted plan contains significant issues, including but not limited to the gas well and a required 200-foot easement are not shown on the existing conditions sheet. One of the white oak trees is not shown on the existing conditions sheet. No conservation residential inventory and site/subdivision design layout and landscape plan as required by the CR overlay section of the zoning ordinance has been submitted. A narrow cross-section for the street network is proposed where a medium cross-section should be used. No schematic/conceptual drawings for the realignment of Froebe/Meredith roads have been provided, and the township and applicant are in disagreement over whether the subdivision and land development ordinance allows the township to require Froebe Road to be reconstructed. The applicant has already provided written response to these comments. I believe Mark has provided those to you, and it's anticipated they will go over them at this time. However, staff is recommending that consideration of the plan be tabled and continue to the March meeting to allow time for the applicant to update the plan to reflect these comments.
Is the applicant here?
Yes, Mr. Mills.
Hi.
Good evening. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. I want to thank the commission for a chance to address the commission tonight regarding Froebe Farms on behalf of Froebe Management LLC. My name is David Montgomery. I'm the attorney for the developer. With me is Mr. Schleicher. John Schleicher is the principal of JMS Engineering, and he's the civil engineer who designed the plan and I believe did the survey as well. So the plan before you tonight is essentially the same plan that this commission approved almost 2 years ago in October of 2022. The main changes between this plan and what you saw back then is this iteration is in 4 phases. Phase 1 is 35 units, and the other phases are comparable units. Another distinction is the method of sewage delivery, and as the staff noted, that's an issue that will be presented to the Peters Creek Sanitary Authority. The first phase is going to be gravity. And the second three phases, we anticipate at this point will be pump station. So that is a difference from what you approved in October of 2022. And the other changes are largely technical changes, minor, I would say. You can ask Mr. Schleicher about those. But by and large, they were technical changes made as the process with the staff developed. And then the issue of the gas wells was brought up. And that's kind of an interesting issue. At our December 11th meeting, I guess on the old plan that was in front of council, council denied it because the DEP website showed the presence of a website, a quote, active website on the site. Well, we came in and showed that there were no observable indications of a well there, and there were never any production records. We didn't think there was a well, but we really couldn't prove the negative. But the very next day, the DEP contacted the staff, and we were made privy to that the well didn't actually exist. The well, there was a mistake by DEP to list that well in that location. But as fate would have it, there appears to be another well on the site because somebody came up with a picture of a structure sticking out of the ground on this 80-acre site. So the developer's been investigating this. And if that, we know where the location of that is. We think it is a gas well, but we're bringing a contractor out and to investigate, to identify it for certain, and if so, to plug it. And so your code provides, I think your zoning code provides when you have a well where the, quote, intention is to plug, that the easement requirements no longer apply. So we will, once we get that contractor out there and figure out exactly what the plan is, I believe it'll be plugged, and we can, on the next iteration of the plan, will indicate the location of that well to be plugged. So that's the intention with that. There was a mention of some issues with the design process and the landscape architect. Those comments, in our view, related to the actual pre-submission of the plan, and the plan was already worked out with the staff, and nothing really has changed in that regard. And that process took place in some great detail and after a great amount of consultation with the staff 2 years ago. And the plan is sealed by a registered engineer, and so that seems like that would be an immaterial requirement when everything's already been through that preliminary review process and was deemed to be sufficient. So that's where we are right now. I guess the bottom line is, in our view, the plan is essentially the same as what was approved before, with a few minor points about locating a tree, an oak tree on the plan that is not located on there now. That can be done, and once we nail down the location of that well, that location will be identified as well. So that's where we believe we are with this.
Thank you. John Schleicher with JMS Engineering. If you'd like, since it has been a while and perhaps there may be a new member, I can give just a brief kind of overall kind of presentation. So we have here a Google aerial photograph type image to give kind of a location, a perspective with regard to the surrounding area, as well as the development itself. The property is 87 acres, and Jim noted most of these matters, but just to kind of go back through. 87 acres, the zoning district is LD, low density residential, and it's within the conservation residential overlay. And we have been working with the township planning staff and engineer for over 2 years on this. It is the option A under the conservation residential overlay, which is the least dense option under this overlay district. It allows for 2 dwelling units per acre and requires a minimum 25% open space. The other options, of which this is not, are 2.5 dwelling units per acre, which would allow approximately 220 lots on this property. And the option C is 3 dwelling units per acre times 87, which would be over 250 dwelling units would be permitted. We're actually under the 2 dwelling units per acre requirement under option A with 170 lots. Just doing quick math, it's 1.9 roughly dwelling units per acre. And again, with this option, 25% open space is required. We're actually providing 30% open space, which is several acres above and beyond the minimum requirement. That 30% open space actually coincides with the 2.5 dwelling units per acre. So we have the lower density option, and we're providing the open space requirement for the higher density option. 168 of the 170 lots directly abut open space. So again, in working with staff and just working through the design and being just very, very aware of those opportunities really to have just about every lot abut open space. And then within that open space, and that kind of coincides with Mr. Montgomery pointed out about some of the pre-application meetings and processes and excuse me, different concepts that were discussed and presented and worked through. There's a stream, the headwaters of a stream from Froebe Road, which is, could you, no, this is fine. Is this large enough for you to see, or should we kind of zoom in?
A little larger would be great.
That's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, you know what? If you wouldn't mind, keep going.
Sure thing.
Get some of the topography and other natural features on one of the plans.
There's a grading.
Okay, if you could back up a couple slides, I think we have the overall. There it is. Okay. So this kind of has everything. This is the grading and drainage plan of the overall site. So Froebe Road is in the left, which is the western portion of the site.
I was gonna say, we have a laser pointer, John.
Oak Ridge is to the south. Froebe Road runs along the western portion of the site. Meredith Drive comes in, Peterswood Park, back in this area here. Meredith Drive and Froebe, you can see there's a lot going on there, and I'll discuss that as well. With that existing intersection has site distance issues, and was another matter that the staff had brought up very early on in the process. If the developer would be willing to, kind of correct some of the deficiencies of that intersection. But getting back to some of the natural features and the open space and those sort of things, there is a small stream that runs west to east through the central portion of the property that is undisturbed and maintained in the permanent open space. There are some. In addition to there's a couple large trees that are mentioned in the reviews. One is in this vicinity here, which we're going to, make efforts to preserve that, and another is in the field in this area here. There's also several very large oaks that are preserved in the open space area.
Where is the alleged well? Gas well?
Sure. It is right about there.
But it's on one of the existing, or one of the proposed lots, correct?
It is, correct. Yeah, it's in the rear of that very last lot on the right on this road that comes in.
John, would they be allowed to have even if it's capped, a house there?
Well, in my opinion, no. There's a handful of different, we've talked to the DEP about it. They've had some in South Park where people have built over top of plugged wells and they've had problems. There's a lot of studies all through the United States as to why that's not a good idea for obvious reasons. So that issue, if they would redesign the plan and submit, we would have to take issue with that when it came back before us.
Okay.
So, Mr. Smith, just put a fine point on that. Your opinion is there shouldn't be any building over a well, but is that distinguished from having a well on a corner of a lot that's not otherwise disturbed by construction?
Well, I will tell you, and this is something, Ms. Montgomery, I have to speak to the DEP about. So when the manager and I consulted with them, they had a home in South Park, and Paul, I think it was the last couple of years, where the well that was plugged let go, and they said luckily it was just on the side of the home, but it still resulted in, evacuation of the home, problems with the home itself. So I think we'd have to probably look at the location in consultation with engineers to see how close, because typically with these old shallow wells, the gas field is about 30 yards round, depending on the age of the well. That's what they used to try to aim for. And not everything, depending on the fissures and stuff, gets capped in that process. So that would be my concern. But we would probably have engineers, Ms. Montgomery, speak to that, so it's not just a lawyer's opinion as to whether you should do that.
And there should probably be disclosures to the potential homeowner or that's the condition.
And I would hope that the developer wouldn't want to do that, first and foremost.
Exactly, right.
For the poor unsuspecting person.
So you guys truly need to identify that. You need to have a cap. We need documentation from DEP that it's capped, and we need to be comfortable for this before we could vote on this plan. Do you agree?
Well, I think, Mr. Mills, the code...
Please come up, David.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think the code just requires that we express an intention to plug the well, at least for preliminary approval.
Well, I think the only problem I have with that, David, is that the developer does not own the well. They own the land, and under DEP regs, you would have to make application to take ownership and get their permission to actually plug the well. So it's not unusual for drillers to walk away from the well, or anytime you do a lease, the people don't own the actual apparatus or the wellbore itself. That remains owned by somebody. Or right now, under Pennsylvania law, it's probably considered abandoned. So the developer just couldn't go on themselves and make application and say, we want to plug our well.
Well, just to be clear here, this is an unpermitted well, that there are no apparent records anywhere of this well. So if there's some owner of this well from, 100 years ago who...
Well, no, I understand that.
I don't think there is an owner of this well.
And there is a list on the DEP website, and even Washington County, of all the abandoned wells that have no owners anymore. Yeah. And that falls into the category of DEP's happy to have people pay to plug wells, but there's a process for which that the DEP has to approve. And I'm just saying it's not your well such that you could say with definitive tonight that we have the ability to plug it. It's not your call yet.
Well, legally, I won't speak to that, but the developer did provide the appropriate notifications and advertisements over a year ago to any potential, owners of, such facilities.
Oh, no, and that's different. And I don't expect you to get into a legal fight, but that's different in terms of ownership.
I believe that gives the developer, the property owner / developer, the ability to address it and cap it.
They have the ability to petition the DEP to take over, to have the ability to cap the well.
Right.
The DEP will make that call.
And I guess what I would say is this shouldn't be an issue for preliminary approval. It could be a condition for final approval that the well be plugged or that the lot not be.
Well, and that's something we have to look forward with, because when I spoke to the DEP, we have to look at the timing of that process and as to how quickly they allow that to happen. And I will tell you, in the oil and gas world, since Marcellus, everybody that has a shallow well comes out of the woodwork to claim ownership. And because if they can claim ownership, potentially they could hold some deep rights. I'm not saying that will happen, but it's not always as clean as you'd hope it'd be.
Well, I mean, we've done title searches and there are no leases of record for that. So,
and I don't disagree with your title search. I'm not putting that. I just know the process with the DEP. how they would have to put out notice.
Right. So I guess I'll just have to circle back to your code. The language of your code says if there's an intention to plug the well, that the easements are not required. So I guess just for tonight, we're declaring that the intention is to plug that well.
And I understand, and I guess the only caveat that we have to wrestle with, whether it's this board or council or me down the road, is whether or not you can have the intention to plug a well that is not yours.
We will keep the staff and you involved in how that process is working out. They're actively investigating this and trying to sort that out.
Okay.
Are there any more questions on that matter, or I can just kind of continue through with a more general presentation?
Yeah, keep on going, thanks.
Actually, I have a quick question. So you mentioned about the tree, you'd make efforts to preserve the tree.
Yes.
What does that mean?
The location of this is, it's near the tip of the stormwater management facility. It's a very narrow portion of the facility, so there would be the possibility to kind of shorten it up and, kind of.
I think what the commission is looking for, just kind of reading into his question, is, the word effort and possibility versus you're going to do it, you're going to preserve it. Why can't that happen?
We have to look into the volume of the facility and the grading plan itself. We've looked into it, but.
So let me ask you this.
We've not gone back.
If you redid the grading plan, could you work around it, maybe have less lots?
Certainly. I mean, that's a matter of degree.
That's all I wanted you to say.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Anything else you want to continue?
Sure. I mentioned the relocation of Meredith Drive and Froebe Road, which is in this area here. And Jim, if you could back up several slides, maybe we'll get something without the topo on to better illustrate that.
Yeah, one of these will be better.
Go forward one.
Yeah,
that looked pretty good. Okay, so here's existing Froebe Road. Here's the intersection with Meredith. There's a three-way stop there, I believe, right now, and Meredith kind of curves off of Froebe here. Again, the township pointed that out very early on in the process, that the intersection is deficient from a site distance standpoint. It's kind of irregular, I would say, in the angle of Meredith onto Froebe as well. And could the developer incorporate some sort of improvement to that, which is actually part of the township's capital improvements plan. And TPD actually had a concept in the capital improvements plan that brought right-of-way through the developer property and kind of tied Meredith into Froebe Road in this vicinity here. We've didn't follow that exactly conceptually. Yeah, we're dedicating several hundred feet of right-of-way to accommodate that and bring a T intersection with Meredith and Froebe here, and then continue back onto what I call, existing Froebe Road. So that was one of the things that was, again, discussed early on in the planning staff pre-application process, as well as the natural resource inventory information and preservation and some of those other kind of checklist items. With that, there are no DEP permit environmental impacts as far as any stream or wetland impacts. No stream, no wetland impacts. And as Mr. Montgomery mentioned, this is pretty much the identical plan that was before this board in October of 2022. The four differences between then and now are the sanitary design. We've kind of reconfigured the conveyance design for that, and we've cleaned up. We've addressed all the township engineer as well as the traffic engineer review items. The only items left in those review letters would be conditions or would be final approval matters and details to provide at that time. The well permit, we have the permitted well location, I'll call it, the well that was on DEP's website but never existed. We did provide that on this plan, but we were unaware of the actual well that is not on DEP's website.
And it's not in the same location, it's what?
It's 700.
feet away, 700.
Jim, do you have a picture of that somewhere?
And then the fourth difference between this plan and the previous one is we've broken this out into 4 different phases. Previously, we had 2 large phases. So again, the layout's identical. It's just the phasing is a little bit different due to the sanitary sewer matter being able to gravity a certain number of lots from the existing system, and then also from a constructability standpoint. So,
And John, am I correct, based on memory anyway, your first phase doesn't have those concerns that your later phases for the sewage?
the phase 1 can be gravity sewered.
Okay.
Phases 2, 3, and 4 are
Those still up in the air?
subject to the pump station. Yeah.
Well, incidentally, this well, what we think is a well, is in phase 3.
Okay.
So that would not be one of the first phases to be constructed. So you originally had 2 phases, you'll now have 4 phases. What is the difference in end-to-end timeline now that it's 4?
It would probably push the construction out 2 more years.
2 more years.
And that's not to say if things went very well, we wouldn't construct 2 phases at once either.
So they could be concurrent.
Yeah, it gives the developer more flexibility.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I asked John to put the list up that he started with to see with the planning commission.
Well, I left a few things out of that, so I wanted to pull up the big one.
I'd like to talk about the width of the streets.
Yes. So, again, we've addressed this and discussed and went through this with the staff. The street width is the new paving cross-section, 24 feet, 10-foot cartways, 2 feet curbs. Does that sound correct? The previous conservation overlay paving section, I believe, was 9-foot cartways and 1-foot curbs. So 9 and 2, 20 versus 24 is being proposed. I believe with the narrow cross-section that's bullet point here is the right-of-way, so which is a totally separate matter from the paving structures.
So you're proposing a 24-foot wide
roadway.
Roadway,
yes.
So that's 2 10-foot lanes and 2 2-foot curbs.
Yes, thanks. Yes.
Is that a narrow roadway?
That's a narrow.
Under our ordinance, yes.
Under our ordinance, it's a narrow roadway.
Okay, and correct me if I'm wrong, please. I believe that, I kind of understood that to be the narrower right-of-way, but I believe the narrow paving, to distinguish it from the medium or high, would be on-street parking?
Potentially, yes.
Okay. Yeah, in order to provide the narrow cross-section, there are parking requirements for each unit. There is, I believe, 2 parking spaces per unit required, one or 2 guest spaces per unit required, and then I would call it, they're not guest parking, but on-lot parking, and then guest parking at the rate of 1 space per 5 units. So with the proposed development, we're proposing 2 garage spaces minimum, 2 driveway spaces minimum, which meets the parking requirements for each dwelling unit, and then the one parking space per 5 dwelling units scattered in, I believe there's about 5 or 6 areas where we're proposing off-street parking. I'm sure Jim could pull up one of the plans that show that. And one of the requirements with that too is all of these guest parking areas must be within 300 feet of each lot.
So if somebody's having a party,
right,
they're going to have to park in the street, right?
Either park in the street or park in one of
So
these.
if you park in the street, is it going to be really hard to get around these cars?
It's going to be one lane around it, basically. So you're going to lose a lane of traffic when a car's parked on the street.
Okay.
One of the staff's
How about like
intention,
emergency vehicles?
they would be able to make
Fire
it around it,
trucks.
but it's not going
So
to
they're
be
having
easy.
a party, catches on, there's a fire.
It's not going to be easy to get through.
The parking requirement, and forgive me for being unclear, but I want to be specific about this. There's an on-lot parking requirement for each unit, is that correct?
That was kind of my explanation of it. I'm not sure what the formal.
And they're using, so to satisfy that, I guess is my point, you're using 2 spaces in the garage and 2 spaces on the driveway.
Yes, sir.
Is this an HOA or is this it is an HOA?
It will have an HOA, yes.
So you'll have a covenant that does not allow storage within the garages? So I know I got Power Wheels and baseball bats and garage. There's no cars in my 3 garages. So just like, what's that actually look like? Will there be a covenant that does not allow folks to park within their garage?
I would have to check with the developer on that. I don't know that the covenants would go that far, but.
That would seem to be a pretty significant element. I mean, I'm not sure how realistic it is, but maybe I'm unique in that factor, but that may be something important to me.
I think there's additional parking required at the cluster mailbox locations to allow someone to park, get out of their vehicle, go to their mailbox and get their mail, as opposed to just stopping in the street. I think there's a pull-off spot.
Is there on here somewhere?
We do, yeah. It's in the southwest portion. You can see it on this plan.
There's more than one cluster mailbox, I think, isn't there?
There's 3.
There's one right here in the southwest, yeah. And then I believe
Right off Froebe.
there's one right here and then one up here, and those are both on the northern part.
Is that parking used for both purposes, for meeting requirements there for mail?
I believe that's in.
We actually don't have requirements for the cluster boxes. So what they've done is they've taken that visitor parking and made it dual use by having the cluster boxes as well as use it for visitor parking. One of staff's concerns is that there aren't that many of these parking lots located throughout development, so some units will actually be quite a bit of a distance from there, and the likelihood of visitors to those lots will probably be that they'll be parking on the street, albeit illegally.
And we do plan to add, additional guest parking, similar to those 3 areas. The additional guest parking would probably be more just directly pull off, just kind of back right out onto off and on to the road, as opposed to a separate driveway, with parking spaces.
Well, have you considered doing some on-street parking here and there? A few bays of handful of spaces?
Yeah, we would certainly consider that.
It feels very constricted, especially when you look at fire truck access. Have you identified and run a fire truck from a turning analysis and all the intersections work? It just feels very constricted from that standpoint.
I'm looking for it.
Yeah.
As long as we've done it, it's been done, and it's been reviewed. And
I believe there are some issues with that.
Mr. Mudry, can you speak to that?
I provided them, so we have these truck turning templates. It's a computer program, and we've worked with the fire department to get the specs for the fire truck, ladder truck in there. So I provided that to John. It's within the last month or so. And my request was for John to rerun those and provide those electronically. I don't know if there's any in the plan set, Jim, but they're hard to read.
There were in the plan set, but I didn't forget to make plans these days, who knows? Oh, I think this is on.
I still think that's an outstanding comment.
Yeah, they must not be in there.
So we've not yet, so Mike, just to be clear, we've not yet seen turning templates with Peters Township fire trucks that this narrow street grid will allow.
Correct.
With circulation.
Correct.
Do they have to sign off on that? They have to sign off on that, don't they?
I don't know that the fire department has to sign off on it such that such that their truck works.
They don't specifically sign off, but they do review the plan.
Have we had comments from the fire department on that level of access?
Not to date.
Well, they have reviewed it informally, and they had asked that Mr. Mudry take a look at the emergency vehicle access, primarily the larger fire trucks.
And the reason why I think this is so important is because the width of the road affects the width of the right-of-way, which affects the setbacks, grading, open space, and it really comes down to the quintessential foundation of the open space ordinance you're under, right? So, I mean, that's one of the elements here we're looking at. It's foundational to the plan, I think.
Yeah, and we'll certainly provide the updated, vehicle turning templates. I believe that was written in the review as could be a matter of final design conditions. But fundamentally, and it's a good question. Fundamentally, the road design meets the township ordinance. The township ordinance most assuredly was written to accommodate emergency vehicle turning movements and traffic.
You hope so. I'd rather have it seen and done by our fire department and approved by our traffic engineer, because the last thing I'd want to do is have all these residents and the fire trucks can't get there for a fire. I think it's the most important to our residents.
And there's one ingress and egress on this?
Ingress and egress to Froebe Road. No, there's several. There are two in the southern portion. One here, and then one at the Meredith Drive reconstruction, and then there's two more in the northern portion. And then there's also right-of-way extended to the golf course parcel, which is to the east. Again, as worked through with the township staff in anticipation of potential future development to the east. And just couldn't agree more with the, obviously the emergency access and everything, but again, with the road width being consistent with probably 90% of the residential roads in the township, we'll certainly provide additional engineering, but I'm very confident that it's just a matter of.
I'm just seeing kind of a stacking of factors that are kind of. It's concerning that we have narrow roadways, we have a restriction on parking because we don't really have a lot of parking in front of the units. Then we have potentially, without any parking on the streets, fire truck access issues. So when you compound those, it gives me pause about those narrow roadways. And I guess my question is, to what degree does the township have say in what cartway width that we're permitted to use? I read the comments, and I just want to make sure that we have good standing on that.
Are the roadways being proposed here any different than any other plan?
They're being proposed under the overlay district, correct, John?
Yes. They are.
And whether the overlay district in this particular plan, meets the requirements of our fire department, I think, and safety is very important.
Right, and that's why you've heard from our traffic engineer who's looked at this and he's evaluating whether that can be done. Obviously, with this number of homes, Mr. Chairman, I know you pointed out earlier, inevitably people are going to have people over, and it really, could be congested with those narrow roads. And we see this issue does happen in the township with less congested plants, with less homes.
Oh, yeah.
That's my concern. We do have people come in and complain that
graduation parties, birthday parties, Super Bowl parties, yeah.
Yeah, and just to, and I'm not, I'm not trying to parse your words or anything, but just to distinguish, cartway width, roadway width, travel road width from right-of-way. We have a narrower right-of-way, but we don't have a narrower paving design. Just About Farms has a narrow paving, the conservation overlay paving width, and this is several feet wider than that. That's the one plan I'm familiar with to use as a comparison or as an example.
Is that the one by the?
Off of Just About Road up at the bottom.
Oh, up there, saying that's the same, okay.
Yeah, this is wider than at Just About. I'm also familiar with Sherwood Pond, the loop road behind the old high school.
Yeah.
That has the same right-of-way width.
Are these the same type of proposed houses as sort of the carriage homes or those smaller homes?
I'm not sure at this time.
Okay.
A question on Stormwater Pond. Forgive me for not knowing the number, but it's kind of right there at the left-hand side. Get up there. Yep, that'll work. So from that perspective, it looks like the breastwork is within lots 228, 227, and 226. Is that the case?
No, I could take a closer look at that. There's some grading that is, it kind of ties, the embankment side of that is where this, the spillway is. This side is more of a cut that kind of blends into the backyard fills for those lots. Those are low side lots that will have walkouts and then a fill slope behind, and then the fill slope will, kind of run down to the.
So the township, will the township own those? I think I read that. Did I read that correctly?
Yeah. We've been taking those over.
So the township will have an easement onto those private properties, and that's not going to be a...
If necessary,
concern?
yes. Yes.
Yeah, and looking at the plans, we're going to need easements on those lots, because you also have plantings in that area as well.
Gotcha.
The township has found that the HOAs just can't maintain them.
Right. Similarly in this area, that is open space number 4. Is that correct?
It is. I don't know the number.
Does open space number 4 account for the pond?
It includes the pond, generally speaking, but then there is some math. You subtract out the any structures or any, I'll call it, improvements in the open space, and it still meets that 30% requirement.
So from an open space calculation, you may have enough, because you said you have over the 30% required, but do you have, when you cut that out, do we still have adequate open space? If we cut the entire
yes.
pond, the grading, because that's infrastructure.
Right.
That's not open space.
It still meets.
You still meet the code.
Yes.
Did you ever take a stab at redoing a proper calculation
For
the open space?
Yes.
Taking that out?
Yes.
Okay.
And it
Now,
escapes
John,
me.
are they allowed to have stormwater ponds in lots? When I'm looking at lot 227, the pond looks like it's in the backyard of these lots.
Typically, because they're usually, at least we used to, dedicate them over to the HOA, they're always on their own
Yeah, but
area
it looks
ground.
like, yeah, but typically it's in the open space, right?
Right.
Not on an actual lot.
Correct.
Or it's on its own little
Right.
bismuth, if
Yeah.
you will. Yeah.
Kind of bizarre.
Also, the inventory analysis. I mean, could we talk about that a little bit? Could you identify, I don't think that was submitted.
Well,
That was actually different.
that was provided pre-design. That's something that you go through during the pre-application process. And that was done, like I said, I would say several times, with the staff. It's not part of, I guess it's provided, in the plan set, but not as a.
It's nothing that stands out. Let me put it that way. And that was basically staff's issues. I have not seen it.
Right.
I'm relatively new here. Jim has not seen it either, so we were not privy to that, and there's no evidence that it occurred.
And quite frankly, I've been told by other previous staff members that may have been different with Froebe Farms, but it's maybe been done more informally by staff in the past, whereas we probably shouldn't have been doing this that informally. So.
Is it a part of this application, specifically this plan application?
It should be. It's basically what I was getting at is that there's no evidence that there was even such a thing done, other than there's a note on the plan. And that was done with the previous application, not with this particular application.
So the question, if it wasn't completed with this application, is you're requesting to port it over, we haven't looked at it, has been reviewed with this particular plan.
I mean, even if there was a write-up and kind of some evidence that showed all the different natural features that you're trying to work around, I mean, that would have gone a long ways towards meeting that requirement. And one of the other issues is that it's supposed to be a landscape architect that does that analysis, not a professional engineer.
That's also kind of foundational, the conservation residential process.
Essentially, that's supposed to then kind of set up the overall design concept for the site, which in many regards does meet a lot of those concepts. But again, we don't have that evidence.
So it seems like it's appropriate. We just don't have the hard facts to confirm that this preliminary plan meets that intent.
And there's some other issues. We talk about those oak trees. It looks like there may be, I believe there's a stand of trees on an open space too that is going to be eliminated for one of the ponds right there. So, but again, I don't necessarily see any evidence of that one way or the other.
Can I just ask, I'm just curious, has a plan ever been required to be altered for the presence of a single tree? Is that
Required?
ever happened?
No, not in this township, it would be my
Okay,
guess.
so this is new for this plan. Because I think Mr. John tried to point out that, there are lots of oak trees that are being preserved on the plan. A lot of great big old oak trees are being preserved, many. And there's 2 oak trees that have been singled out that the township would like to have preserved. But, I think you have to look at these things in a reasonable way and with some perspective. The plan is providing 30% open space in preserving the great majority of trees on the site, except for maybe 2, that may not be the material we're using to require the alteration of the plan.
And my understanding, and Mr. Lauer could probably speak to this better than I, but these were the biggest trees.
You've got trees that have been determined to be 350 years old.
Wow.
And it would seem to me that if on a site this big that is deemed to be conservation residential, if you can't find a way to save a tree that's 350 years old, there's a problem. And it's not only this one that's in the front, the one that isn't shown in the back. The other thing that I would argue is, I don't know how you make the statement that you know that so many trees are going to be saved when the plan that's required that shows you all of those features has never been submitted. So I don't know how you make that determination that given the amount of open space, you're saving all those trees. The other thing that I want to point out, and I just want to make sure that there's no misunderstanding about this, there's been talk about the former plan and what was done with the former plan. That plan is irrelevant now. It has been turned down by council. The developers chose to litigate that decision, and it sits in common pleas court. This is a new submittal that is subject to review by staff and by the planning commission, and it stands on its own. It doesn't rely back on what was done previously. So you need to look at this as what it is, a new application.
Agreed. Thank you, Paul.
Oh, you're going to do me a favor, Mr. Mills, going forward. If we have people come up to speak, they have to sign in.
Oh,
I'll have a very angry secretary.
Is there a tablet there?
There's a tablet.
I didn't see it. Okay.
Also, I'll make sure. No, about the trees, yes, we can tell you how many trees are being preserved.
Yeah.
But we just say the trees are being preserved because we know the plan, the cluster, the main group of stand of trees are on the open space. So we can't provide a number but that's where most of them are.
Yeah.
So.
And again, I know there were two that Mr. Lauer pointed out. There were the oldest and biggest there that, under our ordinance, we wanted some proof to why they couldn't be preserved.
Oh, and was there some effort by the township to try to look at those trees and determine their useful life?
I don't know that.
Yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah, was there an
The Environmental Quality Board, working with an arborist from W&J, has made a determination that those trees are significant in terms of their size and character, and that they're viable trees.
Have we seen that report?
I don't know whether you've seen that report or
I'm
not.
fairly certain it was provided to the applicant.
Oh, okay.
If not, we can get it, just request it.
That would be appreciated. Thank you very much.
Any other comments, commissioners, before we take some audience comments? John, any other comments?
Thank you.
Any audience comments on the right side here? Please come up, sign in, and tell us your address too, please. Sorry if I didn't before.
Peter Steele again. In our highly electronic world with satellite imagery, how come we can't pinpoint on here where the tree is? Exactly.
I think we have something that gets you close.
We do.
But here's
And the well.
Same with the well.
And these other features. I mean, we can certainly talk more intelligently.
Depends on which page they're on. They're looking to flip for you, looking straight around Mr. Steele to see. Jim, can you identify what he's looking at there?
This is the existing condition sheet, and this circle right here is the older of the two trees, I believe. Froebe Road goes along here. There's a gravel drive that provides access to the property. It's just off to the left when you enter.
Now, where is that in relation to the retention pond?
It's right there.
If you give me one moment, actually. This is a little bit more approximate, but it more or less shows you where the tree is in relation to the pond.
What about the one down to the right?
Yeah.
Where's the well?
Well, I believe will be right here.
Yeah.
On the corner of this lot here.
310 or something.
Is this the other tree in the lower corner?
This green dot here is the other tree.
Right in the middle of the street.
Right in the middle of the street.
Any other audience comments on the right side? Please come up, introduce yourself, sign in, please.
Jay Chapman, 150 Froebe Drive. I was up here before last meeting, very dissatisfied with this plan. I'm unfortunately right here abutting the plan. I guess my question is on the swale, the drainage, John. Where's John? What is that designed for? Is it the 100-year?
I'm not sure what this.
Your comment
This.
about the 500-year.
Well, that's when there's a stream there.
A stream?
So for instance, they determine a map around the stream. And what I'm trying to say is those maps are so old now in the rain that you often see something in a 100-year flood. But it should only flood once, right? We see it flood times, sometimes 5 or 6 times nowadays. So
I could just see, as they're excavating for this plan, we get a torrential downpour. My pool is going to be full of mud, and I'm concerned about that, obviously. And tree conservation, I hope you leave the line of trees that are between me and your your plan. That's my buffer.
John, do you know if is that the plan?
Yes, there's an open space buffer along, that's our southern boundary, which is...
But are you doing any grading within that buffer?
Can you pull up the grading plan? 'Cause it's pretty tight right there.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, no, my finger slipped.
Could you explain right behind lot 106 how that works?
Come on up, please.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know what the distance from the property boundary to the bottom of that fill slope is, but there's, here for a reference, there's 25 feet of open space there. So that's maybe 10 feet, maybe 15 feet in this area, extending out to the full 25 and more in other areas.
We'd actually see the trees where they are.
I know my property line is on
Can you
my side of the tree.
pan to the left a little bit more?
So John, we have a low side lot condition, right? Right there.
On those particular lots,
On
yes,
those
sir.
lots. Let's go back right to there where this gentleman's home is, or very close to the right. I'm sorry.
This is the property.
Yes.
Gotcha. But for this discussion, we just slide to the right just a touch. Right, so right there. So we have a low side lot condition.
Right.
Which is walkout basements. Then we have a 2-to-1 slope of how many feet? Roughly? From 20 to 40? So 20 feet
20 feet max, yeah.
in height.
Yes.
And that drains down to a natural drainage way across Jennifer, I can't read the last name.
Jennifer Gabriel, these are all my sisters.
So that's how that, does that drain that way? Is that how that drains?
Yeah, that's how it currently flows right now. Upon development, all the impervious areas will be captured and taken to the stormwater facilities, such that the runoff post-development will be no greater, likely be less than, current conditions.
That's understood
that's
the
a
calculation.
There's no yard drains
Yeah.
on this side shown on your storm drainage, right? There's no yard drains on this low side.
Yeah, where's the house draining to?
Is this sanitary? No, I guess
Storm sewer runs under the street. So it should
I
drain.
don't know that I think all the storm is going to go out to the front.
You'll have roof leaders that go out to the front, most
Correct.
likely. So
Correct.
that'll be the impervious surface, and I presume that's driveways in the front. They'll all go to the roadway.
Rooftops, driveways,
Right.
correct.
It's just, what Mike, I understand the existing condition, but there's obviously a little more natural vegetation there, 2-to-1 slopes. That water will go pretty quick. Let's just make sure that that's going to be sufficient to not have a problem there.
That's my
Absolutely.
concern.
Understood.
One of my concerns. The other concern is, you said the plan is designed for a 24-foot road. What is it when it gets out of your plan and gets back onto the existing, what's the existing Froebe Road?
It's in the neighborhood of 20.
It's not.
No, it's about
I mean,
20.
I have people running through my front yard. Ron has people running through his front yard. It's not wide enough for the additional traffic that we're talking about here. And there are cars that park on Froebe Road where the houses face Froebe Road. You're talking about fire trucks. It'd be very difficult to get a fire truck through there if there's a car parked. That road needs to be upgraded if we're going to put 170 houses next door. There's no way, even at the other end, where Miranda's building those houses on those blind turns. I mean, that's ridiculous. That road cannot handle it. I work out in that front yard a lot, and I know that over 50% of the cars use is pass through. The other go into Oak Ridge. So there's no way that this road is going to handle this traffic. And just one other simple question. How many lots are shown on here?
The entire plan? 170.
Can you go to Meredith Drive?
Did you see a 200 and something?
I saw 400 or something.
Yeah, they're numbered, the numbering starts over for each phase. So phase 1 is 101 through 135.
Okay.
Phase 2 is 201 through 227.
Okay. That was concerning. I think that's all mine.
Thank you.
Good evening. So my name's Tim Chandler. My wife and I reside at 518 Sugar Camp Road. We just moved in about a year ago. And I'd like to ask about what kind of traffic studies have been done. To your point about Froebe Road, Froebe itself is just a mess sometimes. But on Sugar Camp Road, the speed limit is out of control. The traffic is extensive. Our mailbox has been hit 3 times since we've moved in. And I've almost gotten hit by trucks going by well off the road because it kind of turns. And so what kind of traffic are you expecting to, I know that you don't know who's going to move into the property. I know that that's not, nobody's clairvoyant like that. But what is the expectation as far as traffic down Froebe Road? What is the expectation the opposite direction down to Bebout? If they go down Froebe Road, what's the expectation that they're going to head toward Finleyville versus McMurray? What kind of traffic studies have you done as far as what the volume of traffic is going to increase there?
Yeah, there was a comprehensive traffic study done in, cooperation and based on some scoping, type things that were worked through between. I personally didn't do the traffic study. We had a professional traffic engineer prepare that, again, with the township traffic engineer.
So, Mike, in addition, Mike, to sort of this gentleman's comments, we talked about the issues with the connectivity to Meredith and Froebe from this plan, issues there, the tightness of the fire trucks. Did we analyze the amount of traffic now with the Miranda plan proposed or being built and this, and how much Froebe Road can really take?
So the applicant had their traffic engineer do a traffic study in accordance with a scope that we sat down with them and went over, and we, did it per the township ordinance. And the township ordinance specifically looks at things like it's capacity driven of intersection levels of service. It does not take into account, you're talking about street width. There was a comment about street width and things like that. That's not something that the traffic study can vet out, because these are existing public streets. And I mean, even John can tell you that there's language in the MPC that developers can only be made to do on-site traffic improvements. They can't do off-site. And that's why we have traffic impact fees low. We do collect impact fees to try to address some of these off-site things, but the list of off-site traffic improvements that we need to do is very long. So that being said, there was a traffic study done. I apologize, I don't have it with me tonight and I can't tell you, but there is data where the traffic study was generated for this development, sent out to both ends of Froebe Road, and then whichever direction they turned up and down Sugar Camp, and then down at Bebout. And I know that's an always stop too. So we looked at the capacity of that. It didn't have a capacity issue at either of those intersections. And then given that there's 2 ways out, and once you get to each end of Froebe, you can turn in 2 directions, the traffic dissipates enough that we don't go chasing the traffic after that. But to circle back to your point, all these other developments that are coming in, we are layering in those other studies. So, and I don't remember all of them off the top of my head, but the other studies that were done over on Sugar Camp for those developments, and I know at times there have been other developments over on Bebout that we've looked at, they're all layering their traffic as a background condition. Anything that's approved in this township, their traffic gets put into the next applicant's traffic study.
Now, are we anticipating, which would probably be also problematic, is cutting through the park with all that additional traffic on Meredith? Sure.
And I believe and again, I don't have it in front of me, but we did have that as part of the traffic study. There was a percentage of traffic that we thought would go through there. But again, you're driving the fastest path. So, I mean, we went out and took a look at it, and we agreed upon like a percentage that would go through the park. And we weren't sending a lot of cars through the park. Because, I mean, try to drive through there. It's not really a fast way to go. I'd rather go sit at the always stop down at Bebout and make the turn than drive through the park with the speed humps and winding around. So, but we did, because the park itself is a natural attraction. Some people are going to drive from here over to the park. Even if we do as many sidewalks as we want, people still will drive. So,
So, two other questions. So, knowing that Sugar Camp Road is designated a state road, it does create some challenges for Peters Township to monitor that from a speed perspective, things like that. But is there an option to put a stop sign at Froebe and Sugar Camp if the traffic is determined to be an issue? And the reason I ask that is because looking at the Churchill Road and the number of accidents that occur up there, I'm anticipating, and again, I'm not a professional, but I'm anticipating that there will be an increase in potential accidents due to blind curves, due to the excessive speed on Sugar Camp Road, knowing that Froebe is going to be a primary feeder from this development.
and I can just, I mean, you're looking at me, so I'm assuming you want me to chime in. It's a state, you're right, it's a state road. There are criteria, there are traffic volumes that have to be met. Looking at those future traffic volumes with the traffic studies and the projections, it doesn't meet that criteria from a volume or a capacity standpoint.
Even though Churchill did.
Yeah, and that's a difference. Yeah, that's a different. Those are primarily higher classification roadways that overlap like that.
Okay.
So there's more traffic at that intersection than they're projecting, say, at the end of Froebe and Sugar Camp. Same thing with the other end. See, we have that four-way stop at the other end of Froebe because it's also being driven by the folks coming up Bower Hill Road and getting into that intersection. So there's more, because it's a four-way, there's more traffic. That's not to say never. I mean, if there's a future bump in traffic or something like that, that's something we do monitor. And, Paul and the staff will tell you, if we notice something out there, we do request from PennDOT to take a look at it.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Gary Levenka. I live at 272 Froebe Road, and we just talked about some of the blind turns. I live on Froebe, just around this bend, going into the wooded area and going over towards Sugar Camp. And my concern is that there is a serious safety consideration that needs to be looked into with regard to the amount of traffic that's currently on the road, the incremental traffic that would be coming from here, the fact that traffic already comes barreling around that corner and is often a concern just pulling out of the driveway onto Froebe, to say nothing of the half a dozen homes in the Miranda plan that are going to have driveways that now exit onto Froebe Road immediately across the street from me. So my concern is you're going to end up bringing somebody out of there on a stretcher after they got T-boned just trying to pull out of their own driveway. That's my primary concern. I also think that the complexity of the redesign of Froebe and the turns in there are going to be an impediment to traffic flow in the area. It will probably cause backups. And again, with the traffic flow headed to Sugar Camp and then turning left and towards the freeway or back up into Peters Township, I suspect that compounded with the additional development in the area is going to compound beyond the studies that we've done. My hope is that the commission and the developers work together. I'm not opposed to development. I think we should advocate for sensible development, and I would ask that the commission consider a macro study that takes a look at the aggregate impact of these developments as opposed to a piecemeal approach. And I appreciate the time. I'll sign in here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody on this side? or right in the middle, in the back. Please come up, introduce yourself, sign in, please.
Signing up here.
Okay.
My name is Paul Shinover. I'm a board member with Peters Creek Sanitary Authority. I live at 185 Bebelt Road. Some residents here do not know, but the township landmass separates to two different sewer authorities. I work for the one, I'm a board member elected by the main township for Peters Creek Sanitary Authority. I know that if the water was going into the sewer authority controlled 100% by Peters Township, that they would want to be aware of this, but on our side, we have done a lot of work with the developers, and we have some outstanding bills. I know the engineers and lawyers are here, but is the developer the owner of the, anyone here? No? All right. So I just want to let people know that before we can do anything more, we do need some bills paid so we can go forward. The engineers and solicitors on our side have not been paid for a while. Working
On this particular development?
On this development in particular. Second one, is anyone else here on the golf course, the 1781 golf course? I don't recognize that. Excellent, perfect. I know from our standpoint, and I don't know if the two parties have worked together on this issue, but we are really wanting to have gravity feed for the whole project. And as I understand it, it is possible, but would take some negotiations. The gravity feed system that's being proposed is really extreme, and we do not want it. We don't want to squelch developments. That's not our issue. We want this to, we like it. We like to do this for our citizens, but we also don't like pump stations in our lands. They're very hard to maintain. Usually the developers are gone 20 years later, and then the people are left with their HOA, and then they don't have a good job with it. We want to make sure that we'd rather go with a gravity feed. If there's any chances for the two parties to work together, we would appreciate that rather than go on option 2 for the phases 2, 3, and 4. I just want to let that be known.
Question, sir. I'm sorry.
Two parties being 1781 and Froebe Farms, this development?
As I understand it, yes, that there was negotiations so far. We don't know where that stands. I don't know if they want to speak about that tonight. But right now, the negotiations of what they would like to receive and what a sewer pump station for phases 2, 3, and 4, I don't know which one's larger, but it's substantial to have that much. That's a lot. That's a lot of units. And so a pump station, we would, as an authority, we would rather not have.
Would you take control of that pump station or no?
So that's what our plan is we want to have some type of escrow, a 50-year escrow, so that in case there's any problems or maintenance or repairs or replacement, that it's not covered by the citizens or the other people not in this development. We weren't as good at setting those contracts before, and we have right now 2 pump stations that were developed about 20 years ago that we currently 100% own as a sewer authority, and they are terrible to maintain. We're trying really hard not to have one, and we know that there's a possibility of not having it, to have gravity feed, if we could just get the two parties to negotiate that direction.
Well, and I will tell you, the developer I know has tried. It's not as though they're ignoring that prospect, so.
The costs of what they want to get and what the pump station might, I just want to put that out there. All right.
And to be clear, you will own this pump station when it's complete?
We have to. We do, yes, that's correct. The sewer authorities maintain the pump stations. We do not want the idea of a HOA running it.
No, where do we?
I came from DC. My HOA there, they owned it. They maintained it. They did great with it. But as we understand it here in this township, that is not a good idea. So I just want to say my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody on this side? Any commission comments? Staff comments? So let's now understand this is just a recommendation to council. Council will have an upcoming meeting. Whether we deny this plan, table this plan, or approve this plan, it is up to council to make a decision.
And just so we're from a commissioner standpoint, I don't see how, I'm not very comfortable approving a plan or recommending approval of a plan that did not have the conservation residential inventory analysis attached to it. We don't have that for consideration tonight. I also have significant concerns about the circulation from a fire and emergency services standpoint. I understand that this is a conservation project and things are smaller and tighter and narrower, and I can appreciate that. But I think that the safety of the citizens or future citizens is paramount here. So that's my opinion as it stands, and I'm willing to make a motion unless there's other discussion from the commission.
Please do.
I'd like to make a motion that the Planning Commission recommend denial of the Froebe Farms Residential Development Preliminary Plan.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's been denied. Thanks. Anything else from staff? We want to discuss the huh?
You want to do it now?
Yeah, unless you have something else, there's nothing else on the agenda.
There's nothing else that
Just staff, just our staff update.
Regarding the meeting?
Right. For the other members who aren't aware, we do have two other plans that are kind of in the queue. That is for Woodbriar subdivision. That is a 52-lot unit off of unit development off of Venetia Road, as well as Froebe Gardens, which is another development for this property proposal. We were wondering if we could have a meeting.
Excuse me, there's still a meeting going on.
Guys, can you go outside, please? We're still in the meeting, sorry.
You can take it outside, you can leave while they're talking. You're fine.
No problem, you can leave, thanks.
But given the volume of the work that we have ahead of us, we were looking to have a second meeting in February, and that would be February 22nd, given how we
At 7 o'clock?
At 7 o'clock, given how we
And you'll
advertise
advertise that as well?
And we can advertise that as well.
And then, Jim, if you want to send around to all the commissions so you have a quorum.
Yep, I'll do that tomorrow.
I won't be here.
You'll not be
I'm
there.
leaving on the 20th.
22nd, we said.
22nd.
22nd of February. It's Thursday, 2 weeks from today.
And Jonathan, just so you're aware, it's unusual. I've been on this commission for a very long time.
To have 2 in a month?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you get the broken in to have
good.
2 meetings in a month.
Good.
More
First month.
experience.
Anything else, Mark?
That's all I have.
Okay. Meeting adjourned.